Hi, welcome to Hamilton and Hazen, Behind the Mic. Join author M.L. Hamilton and me, I'm narrator Kelley Hazen, as we discuss our latest audiobook. Born from our 7 years of collaboration and more than 60 audiobooks we've produced together, listen to the ins, the outs, the ups, and the downs, the inside track you love to follow, Behind the Mic.
Welcome to Behind the Mic number 16. I'm here with narrator Kelley Hazen. Hi, Kelley.
Hello.
So, we just finished our 75th audiobook.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So this is the first book in the Peyton Brooks Hate Crimes division. And we literally hit send on or hit complete on, what was it? Was it Friday?
I think so.
Yeah, very, very recently.
Yeah. We're waiting for it to come out.
Yeah, so the ebook is set to launch and the paperback on the 15th of September, and we're fingers crossed that the audiobook will also launch within a day or maybe before.
I will get it. I bet it'll come out exactly on Friday the 15th. That's what I think. That's what I'm predicting. Maybe the day before, but I think they'll line us right up. That's what I think is going to happen.
That's awesome.
We've been working for this for a while. We keep trying to, and actually ACX Audible has created a situation where we could have a release date. We could ask them for a release date, but they want the finished product 2 weeks before that date, and we're always a little tighter than that.
We are, yeah, it's so hard to do this coordination because I don't want it to sit, because we know that our listeners and our fans want these books now. And so to be able to plan out 2 weeks also means that we're sitting on a completed book for those 2 weeks, which that's hard too. So it's all a conundrum. So
I think
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. What I so I think the listeners, the viewers need to know that we decided to try a new thing with these, because usually Michelle and I will get in this environment, this Zoom basically is what we're doing. In case you didn't know, it was a Zoom. And we'll talk through what we're going to do. And it's always infinitely more interesting than, we'll talk about what we're going to do, and then we hit the record button. And what we talked through was always more interesting than what it, at least I don't know, maybe it's all interesting. But anyway, so today we just hit record. And so we don't know what we're doing.
We're ad-libbing. We're rolling with the punches here.
Which is kind of the way the whole book was produced.
Yeah. So when I went back, so I always record the date that I start the book. And I started in April, which is just such a long time. And we just finished it in September. And so that's a huge amount of time between when I started the book and when we finally finished it.
That's 5 months.
Yeah, it usually doesn't take that long. And the last Peyton was even longer than that ago. So more than a year ago. So yeah, it's been a while, and it's been a busy time personally, but yeah,
well, that always, I mean, that's the part that you can't ever predict, is what life throw at you. And well, I'm not going to say neither of us, but when, what is it? I mean, it's always the other things that get you, right? I mean, if you could live in a vacuum and just write, that would be one thing.
Right.
But I think it's really interesting because we will do this. We will go through this procedure of recording these books, and you will usually get to me somewhere in the vicinity of the first 16 to 18 chapters. And why is it it's like, and you make me wait for that, and you have a very specific reason. What is the reason for that?
So when you're writing a mystery, part of it is planting the little breadcrumbs that lead the reader along in the mystery so that eventually, I mean, the goal is that by the end of the mystery, they should be able to figure out who the culprit is, or the murderer is. That's the goal, is that at the end, towards the end of the mystery, they have an aha moment and they realize.
So you want your readers to be able to figure out your mysteries.
I do, yeah, that's my goal, is for them to, I hope it's not till the very end. I don't like do ex machina. I don't like, suddenly something comes out of nowhere and solves it. I really hate that
Yeah.
type of mystery. But so I want to lay the breadcrumbs, and the problem is it's a balancing act. It's figuring out whether I've laid enough breadcrumbs early on, or if I need to go back and backfill some of those breadcrumbs. And so that's why usually by about chapters 16, 17, I feel pretty secure that I'm not going to go back and add more breadcrumbs in. But inevitably, in those first, I would say, even 15 chapters, I can go back and put in some more breadcrumbs that I didn't realize I needed earlier until I start getting to a point in the story. So it's just about making sure that there's not, my goal always is to hand you the most completed manuscript without, I mean, we had a situation this time too that I was super worried about, and you guys acted like it was no big problem, but I had
What
uh
was that?
I had called the ballpark a stadium, and then I was informed that I was wrong. It was a ballpark, so we had to go back and you had to fix all of those instances where I had said stadium. And so I don't want that. I don't want to make you do that. That just, to me, is a waste of time and a waste of energy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And um, so once you gave me the 18, then we were in the situation where basically I would wait. And of course, you gave me 18, and that was like 6 days of work. So you knew you had X number of days to get me the next. And what we were discovering as I was recording, I was recording 2 chapters a day. So it's actually 9 days of work. But um, but it got a little I don't say I mean I think it went very smoothly, even if I had to wait. I mean, from the reader and the narrator point of view, having to wait, like not being able to maintain that unbroken seam. I mean, that's not my favorite way, particularly to do your books, because I just feel like you get a better audiobook when it's all connected. And the downside for me this time, the big kind of aha moment for me, is that I had another project that was on deadline.
Yeah.
And so I actually wound up recording 2 very different audiobooks, like just switching out. Like when I had chapters for you, I recorded them, but if I didn't have chapters for you, then I went back to the other book. And I have to say, I mean, I'm not sure those final chapters were my best work.
For mine?
You.
Oh no, I disagree. But um
Please tell me how wonderful it is.
no, I disagree. I thought they were dead on. We had an
Good.
interesting, first of all, I can't even imagine, because that would be like me trying to write 2 different genres at the same time. I wouldn't even want to try to do that. That would be just too difficult to switch those hats like that. And
It wasn't that, because it's 2 authors I know really well, you and the other author. I'm extremely familiar with their work now. And it's, I never tried. No, the last day I recorded, we finished Peyton, and then I wrapped up. I finished recording the other audiobook. But I think the only way I could have recorded both books on the same day was knowing that one was put to bed, and then going on and finishing the other one. I never tried to record them on the same day. And everything, it was a happy ending. But I mean, everything turned out fine. I think everything turned out fine. But that's good to hear, because I would get into those last chapters. I think it was like literally the last 2, the epilogue, maybe 33. Was it 33 epilogue and
23.
23. That's yeah. And but doing 23 and then the epilogue, they were the ones where it was like, God, I hope I'm picking up where I left off. That was kind of the big thing, that it didn't take me too long to get into it.
I
You know,
definitely think so.
good, good, good. Since you're the boss. um, we had a very interesting conversation on the phone when we were kind of brainstorming or kind of, hashing out where we were going with this book and how it was going to go and everything. And one of the things, I think we were like in mid recording, and you said that this book for you was a series of father stories.
Yes. Yes.
I think you should talk more about that. I think that's really fascinating.
So, as I was plotting out, I always have, there's always a case for Marco, or two cases, because he's running the precinct, and as captain, it seems like there would be more than just one murder at a time that they'd be investigating. And then I have the main case that Peyton is investigating always. And when I was plotting it out, because I plot everything out, and outline everything, I was noticing that it's different over and over again. The theme kept coming up that it was different fathers in different ways, and including Marco being a new father for the first time, and their ways of dealing with tragic things happening with their children, and the different ways that people manage that, and fathers in particular. And it became to me like this tale of fathers, and their role in raising or not raising, or guiding their children to whatever outcome their children have. And I think it all centered around, in some ways this book really centers around Marco, even more so than Peyton, I think, because it's Marco's struggle. It's Marco coming to a realization that he didn't necessarily ever want, that he has a responsibility to somebody outside of himself that's bigger than anything. And he is kind of juxtaposed against these other fathers that he meets, and in this story. And it was just interesting.
Oh,
Go ahead.
it's I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's like four fathers.
Yeah.
Because there's Marco, there's the victim's father,
Yeah.
there's the sort of collateral damage witness family,
Yeah.
which includes the father, and there's then Marco's sponsors situation.
Right.
Are we any?
Say that again.
Are we missing any? Did I miss any father?
No, those are the four. And they all sort of pivot around Marco, in that story.
Also, in an ancillary kind of way, there's Marco's dad,
Yeah. Yeah.
mom. There's that parental relationship kind of running in counterpoint to all of it,
Yeah.
which is one of my favorite aspects to the book. Leo and Mona. Yeah, yeah, they're very fun. They've appeared in so many of the books, but this one they really have sort of a specific and fresh voice that I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah, they always, to me, were comic relief. But I got to where, I think you and I talked about this too. I was worried when I first started writing it. I thought that there were too many the family scenes, because most of the chapters start with them kind of adjusting to being a family, and I was worried. And then those became, when I was listening to it, when you were recording it, and I was listening to it, and those became some of my favorite scenes, because they so well dovetailed into the crime scenes, because the crime scenes were so much about what it means to be family, what it means to be, yeah, and so they dovetailed so well into that, and those became some of my favorite. And some of the Mona and Leo scenes, them just they're bickering and they're just
They're peppered throughout and they're hilarious.
yeah,
They're just
yeah.
hilarious. Oh God, what was I gonna say? It just went right out of my head. The oh, in terms of parenting, there's a particular passage in the book, and of course, it'd be nice if I could tell everybody where and when. But Marco's thinking in his head, and he's looking at one of these other parental, maybe even a couple of these other father-child relationships, and he's trying to project into the future how he might react in the same situation. It's like this parent's reaction seems unthinkable, and then he tries to put himself in, walk around in that person's shoes, and what would he do? And I thought that was a really, really, it's one of the things that you do so well, is that you take us so far beyond just the plot. I mean, you really give us an opportunity to hear what's going on resonate on so many levels. And that's actually, I turned that passage into a soundbite
Oh,
that on our the Storyteller Productions SoundCloud page. If anybody wants to hear it isolated, it's called Parenthood from Peyton Brooks' FBI, the dating app assaults. And it's probably the dating app assaults, because I haven't actually posted it yet. This is another one in the future. When you see this, it'll be there. Nod, nod, wink, wink. No, but yeah, but anyway, it's really wonderful. I also asked you, and I found your answer fascinating, and I think it would be interesting to share it here, is that because of the nature of this thing, you get these 16 to 18 chapters ahead of time. And then it almost feels like you listen to what I've recorded before I get the next, you usually approve what I've done. It's like, I'll approve 19 and then you send me 20, or you'll approve 19 and then you'll send me 20. My question to you is, what role does listening,
yeah.
I mean, you had so many books when you and I first connected and collaborated and became a partnership. And, and I would just record books and you would listen to them, and, if I made any mistakes and blah, blah, blah. But now we're actually doing it. You're writing the book as we're recording the book. So
Yeah.
they're almost, the creation of the two are happening in parallel.
Yeah,
And so my question to you is, what role does the listening to it play in then the writing, the rest of the writing of it?
so what
Or
I
does maybe
that
it does.
no, I want to answer that with another exchange you and I had. It was on text messaging, where I told you I was worried about there's an action scene, and it's all about timing. And the action scene, I don't want to give anything away, but one of the main characters is delayed trying to get into the scene. And I was worried about the rhythm of that action scene, and very worried about it. And then I listened to it, and it assuaged all my worries listening to it. And I remember telling you, I said I was so worried about the pacing of that scene. To me, that's such a delicate thing to pace an action scene. And I thought, I was thinking of it purely from a writer's perspective, because you don't want to take away the emergency and the urgency and that ramping up of the heartbeat, but it also has to feel like a natural progression of people moving, to some degree. And when you wrote back to me, you said, that's so, I can't remember what exactly you said, but you said, that's exactly what I do. These text messages so pin down what you were worried about too when you were doing that scene, and the pacing and everything. And so to get kind of circular back to your question,
I'm going to see if I can find the text.
by
Yeah.
listening to those scenes, I have self-doubt always with a book, and
Mm.
hearing it eliminates the self-doubt and gives me courage to try something new or unique and see if it plays out or not. I think it gives me permission to be a little bit more risk taking.
Oh, good. Because you know things are working.
Yeah, because I can hear that it's coming together. And in some ways too, there's a theme that runs through this one of I was thinking in particular when we were talking about the Marco situation, and I was thinking about him. He mentions repeatedly his mother is always saying about praying the rosaries, and he's always so dismissive of that, and almost mocking her about her praying the rosaries. And then there's a moment where he suddenly has his epiphany of why she does this. What is it giving her? And that came about because I was listening to it. That by hearing the book, it gave me this, like, the rosary thing kept coming up, and then I could pull it and draw it into a conclusion.
He's we just, and again, as backstory, I was very pleased with the trailer that we put together for the Peyton Brooks Mystery Series. And that's on YouTube. Probably really near this. But
Right next to it.
yeah, but we chose to use a recurring theme that you wrote into it, which was the 23rd Psalm, right?
Yes.
And Peyton Brooks fans know why the 23rd Psalm is a part of the Peyton Brooks Mysteries. And we used that sort of, like, there's music in the book trailer, and then as a counterpoint to that, because it's the audiobooks, because there are audiobooks, we had some audio from the books, and it was all the various important characters of the mysteries reciting some part of the 23rd Psalm. And you and I realized that now we have, in 12 years,
Yeah.
when we do the book trailer for the Peyton Brooks Hate Crimes Division, Peyton Brooks FBI Hate Crimes Division, it would be cool to have a thematic,
Yeah,
a template to the trailers, because we are going to do one for the Peyton Brooks FBI eventually, and we are going to do one for Peyton Brooks FBI Hate Crimes Division. So, God, why does it take me so long to get to this? Marco repeatedly voices the Serenity Prayer in this book at least 3 different times, I think.
Yes. Maybe.
And it is interesting because he does it, I'll bet you, for 3 different reasons.
Yes, he does. Yes.
And that speaks to your point. I think that's for the first time he realizes that Mona's not necessarily chanting to the long-haired guy with the beard every time, right? That there are other purposes that serves, right?
Yes, exactly.
So here's talking about the action scene. I found the text.
The proof, the evidence.
Well, and because if you ask me to speak to that, I'll never speak to it as eloquently as I did the first time. So you said, let's see, where is this? Oh, shoot. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. So Bruce does some interesting audio work on this.
Yes.
I mean, we always, and I really love it, there's a homage to the Grateful Dead in this book. I don't think I'm giving anything away. No. And is it 2 or 3 of their songs? It's at least 2 of their songs.
So that's I do want to talk about that in a minute, but there's at least 3 of their songs, but go ahead, because I do want to talk about my Grateful Dead journey with this book.
Yeah, because I didn't know you were a Deadhead. Okay, good. So chapter 23 is when some of this starts, and of course the first thing is something I need to fix, but then you say, okay, full body chills. The echo was just brilliant. How do you come up with those things? I'm serious, full body chills. I was so worried about the Marco on the stairs scene. That's the action scene. I wasn't sure I had the pacing right. I can't tell you how much it helps to hear it. I mean and then spoiler alert, I'm not going to say that. I was also worried about the Peyton scene at the end. I didn't know if she would come off sympathetic enough. Again, it so helps to hear it. Action scenes are so difficult because of pacing. You want to keep the momentum going, but not too fast where it doesn't feel natural. And my response to this was, it's so hard. Well, I can't read the first sentence because I don't know what it means that I wrote. But it said, I have all those same concerns. Oh, I think it's so interesting to read these texts, right?
Yes.
Because I mean, you and I, we work independently,
Yes.
completely independently.
Yeah.
And then and then we collaborate. If you hear something amiss, you let me know and I fix it. And periodically throughout this then text parade,
Yes.
other stuff comes out, like you're concerned about this action scene and that your fears were assuaged. So it's so interesting to read these texts. I have all those same concerns when I'm recording, including the various voices. So what I'm saying is I'm concerned about the pace as well. And my other concern is that the various voices are sufficiently varied
Yes.
to keep it clear.
Yes.
Because it's coming really fast. And part of what I do for the pacing is cut out any of the he said, they said, Bill said, and or any of the adjectives that describe how he said it are those adverbs. And and so that, and try to just incorporate them into the voices. And then I said, good stuff for behind the mic. And I said, the action scene, I recorded it. I listened to it again. I adjusted it. I listened to it again. I adjusted it again for all the pacing and dynamics. And then Bruce listens to it and adjusts it again. And you said that is actually fascinating.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. And I said, yes, it's all in realizing what has to be really special, really stand out, really hit home. In many ways, the overshadowing pressure and fear of what they face each day as they attempt to be normal. They being the cops.
Right.
Argue that's the underlying theme in this entire world is how to stay normal.
Yes.
In this ugly, ugly.
Yeah. How to not lose your humanity.
Yeah. And then I said the juxtaposition of I will survive and where they are at that given moment in their belief that that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I will survive, but do I believe it?
Right.
It's
brings us to the dead. So when I started writing this, I wanted, it was some random thing. I was trying to find some identifier because the victim on one of Marco's cases, they don't know who he is. He's a John Doe. And I needed some identifier. And it happened to be that I was just messing around on the computer and the Grateful Dead lightning skull came up. And I went, oh, that is perfect. And at the very same time, I knew that Dead and Company was performing at Oracle Park in San Francisco, and it's their farewell tour. They're not going to tour anymore. So I thought, okay, well, this is something that I can incorporate. And I am not a deadhead. I dated a guy who was a deadhead, and this was in college. He did the very thing that one of the characters in the book does, is he would go around the country and he would follow the dead, and he would hop trains. He would hop freight trains, and he would take the freight train out wherever it was and get off. And that was how he followed the dead. And so I have not, listen, I mean, I've listened to the Dead. We've all heard songs from the Dead, but it's not my thing. And I've never been to a Dead concert. But so I went through and I looked at all the lyrics of all the songs, and I wanted something specific for a very important scene towards the end of the book. And I don't want to give it away, but a very specific song for that. So I spent a good 2 days just listening to Dead music and reading lyrics and going through the songs to find the one I wanted. And so yeah, that's why there's so many Dead songs in there, because at each point in the book there was a different one that had a more significant meaning. to what was happening at that time in the book.
You selected you selected really well. I mean, I'm not a deadhead either, but and it was funny because the second song, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so, it's what I do. I mean, this happens, and so I go to YouTube and I find the song because every song in the world is on YouTube, right? And I just listen, I find the song and then I find the lyrics that you've used. And then I listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over until it's stuck in my head and then switch back to to the recording. But it was the thing that I was that so first of all, I'm astonished because I just assumed the second one seems so obscure, the song,
Yeah.
that I thought, oh, she must really be a deadhead if she knows this song. So it's like really, it's cool. It's interesting to find out that you had to go on that search and that it took so much time. It was as soon as you did that, I was like, I can't believe you did this to me. I can't believe I'm gonna have to sing, and somebody's gonna have to believe it's the Grateful Dead. Because that is like so not gonna happen.
Oh,
And
but
so
it turned out so beautifully. It just like when I heard it, and what you and Bruce do, sometimes it's just magic. And it just I'm standing there. It's such a mundane thing. I'm making the dogs food and I'm listening because I listen whenever any opportunity I get, right? Because like I'm so busy. And so it's in the car going to work, it's in the shower when I'm getting ready for work, it's when I'm feeding the dogs. And so I listen, I like pick these little pockets of time so I can listen. And so I'm literally feeding the dogs, and it hits that moment where you're singing those Dead lyrics. And what you and Bruce did again, I want people to experience it on their own, but when it hits that moment, and I'm standing there and I'm scared to scoop out dog food, and I'm just like, my whole body just goes chills down my whole body. And I'm just standing, and I literally stopped. I just stood there for a minute, just like, and just feeling this just visceral reaction to what you guys did. And that's when I know, I think it was at that moment I'm like, this this book, we did it. Like it's come full circle. It's complete. It feels, like a performance. It feels like a professional performance. And it's not an abstraction anymore. It's not a bunch of different chapters I've put together. It's now its own thing, its own entity, and that was that moment for me when I finally went. And I think I texted you then. It was like, this book is, yeah, we did it. Like I felt that moment. I went from being so uncertain and um worried about it to suddenly going, yeah, this is something special.
it's a fresh voice for Peyton. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, I know you were in a quandary and we talked about even on behind the mic about whether or not you were gonna, whether Peyton was gonna go on and that, I think it's actually in the dedication or the intro to this book.
Yeah.
You that the fans have spoken, and so now you don't have to bother reading it. I'm telling it to you. No, that you had decided to go on and it's interesting to think of you with your foot in both those camps, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to stop writing this character. Okay, this character is going to go on, and we never spoke to this. And I never thought there was never a moment of like, oh my God, I wonder if Michelle's going to be able to do it. It was more when you had done it. It's the voice. It's the third voice. It's the third evolution
You know,
of Peyton Brooks.
we talked a little bit about this. I mean, we've talked a lot about Marco's journey in this book, and we haven't really talked about Peyton's, but I think I mentioned to you, I wanted this to be a different Peyton, Peyton, still who she always has been. But this is a Peyton that, to me, where Marco doesn't feel as solid, this Peyton to me feels very solid, very in command of her her world. I mean, she has her moments of doubt, because it wouldn't be Peyton without her moments of doubt. But to me, this is a Peyton that has kind of come full circle to, you know, being more comfortable in her skin, I think.
She's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I think it speaks to that. I mean, and not just the fact that she's had a child, okay, but just, this evolution to the next tier. I mean, it was a big deal when she left the police force.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal when she left the Ghost Squad, the security of the Ghost Squad. And, that gang of weirdos. And, and, but it's, I mean, she's seen up close what death looks like. She's, watched this person in Mike Edwards,
Yeah.
whatever that deeply, a deep closeness
Yeah.
with incredibly wounded individual, with an incredibly damaged person, and that changes you. I mean, how can that not help but change you, even if you're just, a character in a book? It's got to change. She's got to have been affected by that. If she's the sympathetic hero, empathetic hero, that you/we want her to be.
And I think that's you bring up a really interesting point. I think about the Native American, some of the Native American cultures, they believe that when someone saves your life, you're indebted to them for that. And so there's this weird, I think for her, this weird dichotomy that he took an action believing that he was saving her life, not that she ever asked him to do it, but they had a very close relationship that was not romantic on her part in any way, shape, or form, but where I think there was this sense. I think there's a part there where Marco says, so many times I wish things could have been different. And I thought when I wrote that line and I had him say it, I thought she could easily be the one saying this. There's so many times I wish things could have been different. And I wonder if cops don't feel that. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the difficulty of being a cop, and how it can go so wrong. When you think about what they see every day in their lives, how do you go back then and be normal? How do you not view, I'm not making any excuses for things that have happened. I think that there's a very big problem with police brutality in this country, but I can also appreciate on the flip side that everything must seem like a threat. When everything, looks like a nail, you always want to be the hammer, right? It's that adage. And I think for them, it's that thing, like, here's this situation she was in with Mike Edwards that she didn't ask for, but happened. And then what is owed? What do you owe to somebody who either mistakenly or truly believed that he was saving her life? I don't know. It's.
You hit home, and I wrote this. I mean, it was such a powerful sort of realization for me that I actually wrote it down. I wrote it down on a piece of paper because I wanted to make a point of it. Is that it was you made me consider, as a listener and a reader, maybe for the first time in my life, you made me consider that there are cops out there that care when someone dies.
Yeah.
They're just not all.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether they're the bad guy or the good guy, whether they're a victim or a perpetrator, when somebody dies, it matters to them. And, that there are cops like that. I mean, and I think there are.
I mean,
there are. And we forget that because, as you've pointed out, in this particular day and age, that's not the message we get sent most of the time.
No.
That's not, and unfortunately, rightfully so, but it's a valuable thing to remember. I mean, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Not cops are people too, but you know what I mean.
No, I know. And it's an interesting so I had an interesting thing that happened to me just Thursday, as a matter of fact. And we have this very weird relationship with law enforcement, don't we, as humans? So I have to illustrate this with telling you what happened. But we have this moment where we rely on them for order and protection, and yet at the same time we have a fear, a visceral fear of them. And I think both go hand in glove with each other. And it's such a weird, and it's a very uneasy um relationship, I think, at times. And I think it does, and there's a definite power imbalance, obviously, between the general public and police force. But so Thursday, I taken the dog to the vet, and I'm in the vet, and I get this phone call, and so I can't take the phone call while I'm in the vet, so I let it go to voicemail. I want to get back out to the car. I listen to it, and a man comes on the line, sounding very official, and he says, "I'm trying to find Miss Michelle Hamilton. This is Officer Matt Kim from the San Mateo Sheriff's Department. And I have you are being held in contempt of court because you have a failure to appear for a case in which you were supposed to be a material witness and you did not appear." And of course, my heart starts going, and I'm really scared, and so I think I've got to get home. I'm going to drive home. So I drive home, and I'm thinking, like, I've not received anything. I haven't received a subpoena. I haven't failed to go to jury duty. I'm about as vanilla as you could possibly get as far as, my, you know,
Jury duty.
yeah. Like I don't even like, I was like, warrant, maybe I would failed to go to jury duty. I mean, that's like that's where I am. And so I get home, and I'm really upset, and I'm shaking, and that idea that I was somehow in trouble
Oh,
with the law, and that the police officer is calling me. I'm terrified. I am literally terrified. And then I thought, okay, you need to calm down, and you need to think like a rational human being and think this through. And so I called the County of Sacramento Sheriff's Department, and I got the non-emergency line. Called the non-emergency line, not 911. And I get this officer, he answers the phone, and I explained to him what happened, and he says, yeah, he said, that's a scam. Don't respond to that. It is a scam. We have had so many calls complaining about this very thing. He said, if we need to get a hold of you, I promise you, we will find a way to get a hold of you. This would never be any way that we ever contacted you. We would never call you on the telephone like this. And I immediately, like, this wash of relief, hearing his voice, hearing the authority in his voice, hearing him talk, this wash of relief washed over me. And I had to sit there and think afterwards about that weird reaction where, on one hand, I was literally terrified at the thought that the police were looking for me. And then on the flip side, calling them directly and asking for help. I was so relieved at the same time. So there's this weird dichotomy, I think, for people with how we approach law enforcement and what it means in our lives. And
when I was a kid in Missouri, where I grew up in Kansas City, they had this whole, and I don't think it's unique. The police come into grade schools and they do like safety programs and stuff like that. And I doubt this is the only place, but the guy's name was Officer Friendly.
oh,
Right? And they would come in, I know, it's kind of a what? No, but and I think this speaks directly to why we have this confusion, is that, at a very early age, we're taught that the police are our friends, and we actually see them in action, possibly in the classroom, at the scout troop, where they come in and they do a demonstration, or they teach us about something, or they show us something. And then I was in graduate school in Florida, so I'm in my early 20s, and I'm driving in Florida, right in Sarasota, which is Sarasota, it's like really populated along the coast, and then you get a little bit more inland and it's like marshland, and the roads go through basically, there aren't any houses or anything for long periods of time. And I'm driving, that's just like the natural course of things, or it was when I was in graduate school, which was a really long time ago. And a cop stopped me for speeding. And I was in graduate school, right? So I still had a Missouri license. And I'm like, oh, hi. I mean, I was very positive because it's officer friendly, right?
Yes.
And this guy's like, what's that supposed to mean? Don't get smart with me, little girl. And so this was like, I mean, all of a sudden, I was painfully aware of the fact that I was alone on a stretch of highway in the middle of the marshes with not another human being in sight. And this police officer who had a gun on his hip
He's
was
coming hot.
getting aggressive with me.
Yeah, he's coming in hot.
And I mean,
Yeah.
I've never ever been threatening in my whole life,
I know.
especially behind the wheel of a car. I mean, I remember really that stayed with me for a really, really long time. Not only the fear that I experienced, but the disappointment
Yes. Yes.
and when you have this idea of a hero and of a champion,
Yeah.
and that is turned into a fear, and that you could become a victim of this person. I mean, those are really different ends of the spectrum.
And
To
it's hard how do you reconcile that, right? It's hard to.
Well, it's a case by case basis, right? I mean, then you just, and you try not to swing all the way in either direction again, and good cop, bad cop. I mean, I don't know. The final thing that I think would be interesting for us to talk about, and that I experienced in this book, and you said you thought it was interesting, and I would like to hear you speak to it, is that I think this particular book for you and for me is an exercise in subtlety and restraint.
Oh, so much so. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely got that impression too. Um,
I
there's
mean,
not any there's no blowing out of windows in the house, there's no blowing up the charger, there's no blowing up the beauty salon, which, marks so many of the other books. And most of the violence, except for one specific situation, happens off screen in this. They come onto it. It's not that they see it. And then so many of the victims, there was something, I don't know whether it was just both of us hitting it at the right time, but the interrogations, there was no histrionics with the people in the interrogation, and so much of the time the people that they're interviewing, there's yeah, like you said, there's a restraint, or there's a subtlety about it. There's a subtlety about the different, victims that is different than in the past. They're
I think that required a lot of courage from you, because you've had some big shit happen in some of these books, and here we are starting out in this new series. And I think it was very, and I sort of experienced this on two fronts, right? You just let this new chapter be in, you didn't require any histrionics. You didn't require any big, amazing things to happen at the same time. So just in terms of the plot line, but it also would have been, considering what any number of these people in this book are going through on a human level, on an emotional level, it would have been really easy to overwrite those.
yeah,
And you didn't do that.
yeah,
You and it you didn't do that. And it gave, I took your lead in terms of, because it's like every time they go into the interrogation room, it's like, and the characters do it, and I do too. It's like I gotta push up my sleeves. Okay, this is gonna, I'm gonna have to go in here, and this is a recording day where I've got my work cut out for me.
Yeah.
And the interrogations, I mean, I was required to get important, meaningful experiences across in a very, I don't want to say flatline because it's not that, but it required restraint. And in my mind, it required restraint and subtlety. The
Yeah.
fact that the writing encapsulated that, and that's not the word, is a different word I want, but that I felt like that it drew that out of my performances. Narration.
For me, what really, for this one, it's this, there's a lot of contrasts to me in this book. I think of the scene where Marco's going through the tenderloin, and you're seeing the pallets and the tarps and stuff like that with the people that are using drugs on the street, which is very much, unfortunately, the tenderloin now today. And then there's the sitting on the bench overlooking the beautiful city aglow, and reflecting on the fact that it is a beautiful city. It can be both. And I think that that's kind of what I was trying. So maybe that brought more of the mellow, less dramatic. Was there's it can be both. Everything can be both. It's like, I think of Henry's dilemma. I want to know and I don't want to know. It can be both. You can feel both. And I think maybe that's what was coming through my writing, that you picked up on, what you're so exceptionally skilled at, is picking up on the nuance that I want. And just, I can put something in italics and I know damn well you're going to pick up what I meant by that. And something that's simple. And you're so good at picking up that nuance. I don't know whether that's part of the reason why we work so well together, because we seem to be in tune to each other that way. But I think that's what it was. It was a story of balance, and both things can be true at the same time.
Yep. One of my favorite experiences was you allowing me to help you. And I think this is just like the action scene. There's a section of the book that deals with traffic patterns or whatever. And I almost feel like we should close this behind the mic with a street map of Varela and what are the streets that all come together.
I tell you, that whole experience, it was a wonderful experience. And yet at the same time, it was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get this scene right. Because it just, I would look at that map, and then you would look at that map, and it'd be like, well, this goes this way. And of course I would have to pick the most esoteric, weird part of the city to set this scene in, and the different things that are going on there. And
how people live in that apartment building?
yeah, I know. And how many apartment buildings are we talking about? And where is the alley running through? And which direction are we going? North? Are we going south? And I'm looking at the map, and you're looking at the map, and
that was fun getting that.
Was that 3 days it took us to nail that down? And
it'll be really interesting to see if there's any feedback about whether or not I had no idea what you were talking about, like from comments from readers or listeners or whatever. But I think you nailed it. I
doubt that we go to extreme lengths to try and represent this as accurately as possible. I just, and what's funny is that, so my dad drove taxis in San Francisco. This will kind of finish this up. My dad used to drive taxis in San Francisco, so he knows the city like second nature. And so he was reading the scenes, and he says to me yesterday, he said, I never even knew of Tank Hill Park. I've never heard of it. I've never been there. I can't believe you found that. And which was really funny, from somebody who the city was,
oh yeah, like his backyard. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, that's funny. Well, I know that I have to say that's like when we finally start doing our vacation tours, uh, that number 5 on the list of the things we're gonna do when you stop teaching
Yes.
is our vacation. We're gonna, for this amount of money, come see San Francisco with Kelly and ML. Take the Peyton Brooks tour. Definitely Tank Hill Park should be like, if not the last.
Well,
you know,
that's my dad's like, you've ruined the park for all those people in the city that know it's there.
No, no, no. No, 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 no. It's good. Well, this has been good. This has been a great. We'll have to use this technique in the future.
Just wing it.
Just hit record.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly.
Do you know the title of the next Peyton Brooks?
The cross burning case.
Oh, yeah, of course. Duh. Yeah. And what's the next book we're going to be working on?
Right now I'm actually writing the Velvet Sapphire, which is the Peyton Brook early cases, and I've already got 1 chapter done.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So we're looking to produce that in October?
Yes. Yeah. And then we'll finish out the year with our next in the Christmas mystery.
Yes. I love those. I love those. I wait all year to record those.
Yeah.
What is
Everly and Isaac?
That's it. Everly and Isaac. Yeah. Cool. Yay. Can't wait. Get to writing.
Well, this has been Behind the Mic number 16. Thank you, Kelly.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Hamilton and Hazen Behind the Mic. Visit authormlhamilton.net and kelleyhazennarrates.com to join our newsletters for more insider news and views. Today's episode is sponsored by Phoenix Publication Services, PPS, Digital Shepherds. Let us ignite your writing goals.